Hello, America and the world. This is Radio Free Market, and I am your host, Michael McKay. Today we have a wonderful show, folks, with our guest, Mr. Patrick Barron. Pat has been with us before. Welcome, Pat.
Michael, glad to be here.
Now, Pat is a professional banker who has been in banking consulting for the last 20 plus years.
Yes.
And is currently teaching Austrian Economics at the University of Iowa and continues to teach at the University of Wisconsin Graduate School in their banking program. So I asked Pat to come on the show. You may remember, folks, that he was here in July because I wanted to talk about personal responsibility, freedom, and money. And today we're going to talk about what we need to unlearn and how can we learn some of the basics about money, and why more than ever before this is critical. So this is not a call-in show this week, folks. So if you do have questions or would like to engage Pat or me further on these topics, please email at radiofreemarket.com, and we will take care of your question and go from there. Okay. So today we're going to start with, some of the things that we need to unlearn. In this topic of money and economics, people are very lost, Pat, and I find that one of the most pervasive things that people are confused about is this attitude that we see everywhere, that people seem to think that they can live off of other people and other people's money. Mm-hmm. How did we get to that kind of thinking?
Well, I think that the root of all evil is not necessarily money or love of money, but the root of all evil is government money, fiat money, paper money, money that is not based in real value, money that is not part of the market process, but money that is forced upon us by the government. Mm-hmm. And over the last almost now 100 years, since the Federal Reserve Bank was formed in 1913, so we're coming up here to the 100th anniversary in just 4 years, we have gradually learned that, or the public has gradually come to believe, rather than learn, but come to believe that the government itself is the source of their wealth, is the source of their security, personal security, their economic security, rather than relying upon themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a perversion of our thinking that is a consequence of having our money foundation undermined by government fiat paper money. In other words, money that can be produced out of thin air, money that we are forced to use, money that is not a result of a market process and is not a result of production, but money that is just forced upon us, and we see this every day, I think. I really am concerned about this. I think that the biggest example we have today, Michael, is the welfare state. Mm-hmm. Now, in the days of sound money, and we can get into later what sound money is, but it's the gold standard. In the days of sound money, this was impossible.
Well, we're going to come back to this, folks, in just a minute. We're talking with Mr. Pat Barron. This is Radio Free Market, and I am your host, Michael McKay. And after a couple of minutes, we'll be back after the break. We're going to be talking more about personal responsibility, freedom, and money. Please stay with us. Thank you very much. This is Radio Free Market, and I am your host, Michael McKay, and with me is Mr. Patrick Barron, and we're talking about personal responsibility and money and freedom. And Pat, we were just talking about before the break this issue of people trying to get something for nothing. There's an old quote from Frederick Bastiat that government is that fiction whereby we all try to live off of everyone else. From an economic point of view, that's just not possible.
No, of course not. And we were talking about my major concern of how money exacerbates this problem that will always be with us. Government, we will always have government. Government is necessary, in my opinion. So you will always have people that are trying to use the government for their own personal gain, always couching what they want in, of course, altruistic terms for the benefit of the unfortunate or for the benefit of society. But when you have government money and the government controlling the money supply, then it seems as if this really can happen. That, well, yes, instead of the government being forced to tax my fellow citizens or go into the credit markets and borrow from them in order to give me something, my retirement income or my disability income or a farm price support, wherever the case may be. Now the government just prints the money. Mm-hmm. And we see this today when the government is spending money. Someone said they spend money not like a drunken sailor, because a drunken sailor actually spends his own money, mm-hmm. whereas the government spends our money. Mm-hmm. But the government's spending money hand over fist, let's say, and yet the interest rates have not gone up. They've driven down the interest rates, and our taxes have not gone up. So, gee, what a wonderful world. Now I think I'll line up at the government trough mm-hmm. to get something for nothing.
Well, let's sort this out. Let's try to sort this out a little bit. You know, government in and of itself it doesn't produce things. That's it right. Really just redistributes things.
That's right.
And so, because it doesn't produce things, how is it that government's use of exclusive use of force, how does that interact with the aspect of life that does produce things? You know, how do the producers and government get together and make this thing into a mess?
Well, the government as the sole use of force, the sole legal entity that can use force in a society, always can force us to do things. But when it gets bigger and government money, our fiat money, allows it to get much bigger, then it has the ability to get into all kinds of areas of the especially the economy, all kinds of areas of private life that previously were private life. They were not public life. We see this today in all kinds of things where the government is telling us what we can and we cannot do, what we can eat, what we can sell to a willing public. Some of the things that are just so ridiculous that, but yet people sort of support these things. In my hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, we now have a trans fat ban.
A trans fat man?
Ban.
Oh, ban.
A ban
okay.
on trans fats.
Okay.
So this was a big thing maybe a year or so ago, where restaurants were forbidden to use trans fats in their frying of food.
Okay.
And well, in the past, this was ridiculous. People
mm-hmm.
would have said, "Well, this is not what's the government doing here? This is not a government issue. This is not protecting my life or my property." Mm-hmm. But yet, when the government starts down this road of using its power that it gets from spending lots of money, you know, it's got to have inspectors, it's got to have policemen, it has to have people that write the regulations and keep and check up on them and everything. So it has to have lots of money to do all this, and it gets that money by just plain printing it. But when mm-hmm. it starts to do that, well, there's just no end to the mischief that it can wreak mm-hmm. in society.
Well, you know, a lot of people think that we live under a capitalist kind of system, but we don't really.
No.
You know, we live in something that is more which is very different. And some people have called it mercantilism, other people have called it corporatism, but that's really just a partnership between some businesses and government, but not all businesses.
Yeah, we live in what Ludwig von Mises calls the hampered market economy. And the hampered market economy means that we still have generally a market economy. Prices are set for the most part in the market by the interplay of supply and demand. But it is hampered in many ways. It's hampered by regulations, by, one of the biggest regulations that impacts us in so many ways is the minimum wage law.
Mm-hmm.